Right.
Alright, I'm going to start off a series where I just kind of watch something. First time watching it, going through, I'm going to tell you my thoughts and what's going through my crazy head. You'll get a little insight into how I think about this kind of stuff. I'll try to look at everything through like a combative lens, maybe point out pros and cons there. But we'll take a look.
Yeah, you know it. Who won?
Right here we've got a full round Mr. Gordon Ryan with the Teen ADC Trials winner. So we're gonna have big versus. Are we gonna have big versus little? That cat looks huge. Let's take a look. So they're doing positional sparring, obviously. Switching from side guy to front head. Already, I'm gonna say this. Like, thinking to jiu-jitsu, grappling jiu-jitsu, because of the lack of respect for the dangers involved with completely connecting your person in a seatbelt grip and your head smacking into the dome in a fight. This position exists way more than it should in grappling. Combative grappling, this position would be more like I might use this arm over and hunt this wrist, but still have this other arm relatively free. Because once you completely commit both of your hands to connecting to maintain this top grip, and you have this person's hips loaded and ready to drive, your dome could be hitting the ground real easy. And because of mats and mat technology, that's not really a big danger. So the connection to the back is important. That makes this worth it in sport grappling. But from a combative stance, already kind of this position in general with the seatbelt is kind of no man's land. Doesn't really exist. So already we got something. What? It's 4 seconds in. Anyway, and you can see there's also there's not a lot of tools from that side kind of riding position when it comes to like sport and regular jiu-jitsu. He's just going to go straight to front headlock where he has tools and he has attacks too. Because of the lack of attacks from that side position, there's not a lot of going on there. Whereas if you look at another sport like wrestling, you have a lot more dominance and attacks from that side position. So that's something to note and keep in mind from a combative's perspective. This position of being on the side of a person and controlling their hips and controlling their inside, what we would really want to do is control this far side, like inside elbow of Gordon Ryan, his right elbow. We want to try to control that. So that would be a good dominant control position. And then we just, in the jiu-jitsu context, we just kind of move on from it and go where we can make better attacks but have less control. So we go into front headlocks. So even when he goes back to the side, he's still completely focused on just arm isolation, focused on the attack. And this makes perfect sense. This obviously isn't contradicting saying what these guys are doing are wrong. This is the sport they do. It's what it's all about, right? The finish, particularly more and more so as submission grappling becomes like more popular, and it's more about the submission itself and not even control. Like the positions themselves don't even matter as much as they used to. It's just about getting that finish. So this is all perfectly normal and good and talented what they're doing, just from a combative lesson. Just showing you the little differences from a combative perspective. Just gonna roll them. Alright, so for this position here, back up a little bit. I was noticing Again, it's almost the exact same thing from a combative perspective. We talked about when we commit both of our arms and we have a person that still has their chambered hips able to generate energy, we might crack our dome on the ground. In this context, we've committed both of our legs to wrapping them up top. So we've still got free chambered loaded hips in the form of a bridge where we're in danger of getting stacked. And actually, I noticed as soon as I hit play, that is the first thing Gordon Ryan attempts. So what I'm saying is, here we've committed our legs to wrapping a person up. We want to have control of the hips in some way. So reaching down and connecting to one of these legs would be the best thing for my man to do, and not completely focus all of our grips on the arm. There's a bridge attempt. Now he's going to post up. So now we're in a better spot. Now because have weight on them and the bridge isn't as much of a danger to us, now we can refocus on using both of our legs and commit both of our legs more to controlling them and not be at much of a risk of being stacked. But even in this context, overcommitment, like if he was fully locked up top, Gordon Ryan, as big as he is, with a powerful bridge, could easily roll them over and they'd be right back in the same bad situation where you're on your back again. So you don't want to overcommit from a top position to controls where you're like wrapped around the person and committed to be totally around them if they have explosive power and either a bridge or quad potting up. He's working the arm isolation. I'm telling you, I think Gordon Ryan's keeping the big bridge in his back pocket. I think that's how he's going to end up getting out of this spot. All his toes are in the mat, ready to go. Now he's in a crucifix. So he's going to have to solve that problem first. Or just maybe a big enough bridge with the little kid throwing him off and will be good. So he solves the crucifix problem. This is another, I think, let me see if it happened here. Let me make sure it's what happened. Yeah, this is another thing that happens a lot, even at the highest levels of grappling, that I think is a mistake and should be capitalized on more. And I'd have to say Gordon Ryan probably knows this and understands it as a mistake, and he's just not worried about it because he's just kind of either flow rolling or isn't too concerned about his opponent. But right here, oh, never mind, he had his leg. So what I was going to point out, so a common mistake you see at the highest levels is a person will throw an underhook up to wrestle up without controlling a leg first or having some kind of control of the leg. And this is a exposure. Anytime you're throwing that underhook up high, you're exposing that arm, and it can get you in a lot of trouble getting that arm isolated if they can just throw their hips in. That's why you need the leg control, is to prevent them from throwing their hips and isolating their arm. So it looked like Gordon Ryan actually did it here. You can see here, this is what the position I'm talking about. He's going to off balance it first, but he's a little lackluster with it, but he knows he's got the leg controlled and isolated when he throws this arm, so he's not in as much danger. But drilling and practicing punishing people for throwing that underhook when they don't have leg control is something definitely worth doing in any kind of grappling you do, whether it be like submission grappling or combative grappling. Punishing a person for just throwing their arm out there and up there and grabbing a hold of you without controlling their leg. So what I mean is right here, this is a perfect example, and this isn't phenomenal control. This cat could still do it, especially with as athletic as he is. You drive off here, bring your knee up into this space, and just completely isolate that arm. And then you do what you want from there. You can come around the top for like a spinning armbar kind of deal. You can go straight into top triangles and all that from there. But that arm isolation is easily punishable. You can just drive this knee through and then over into like a monoplata kind of situation. Punishing that reach, punishing this gap here, this open elbow, without controlling the hips and the leg is super important to grappling, and something you definitely want to drill. Something I have to work on and been wanting to work on for a while. So yeah, pretty cool. You can see he eventually gets good control of the leg because he knows the value of that. But the exposure was there, and that, like, I was surprised when I first realized this as a concept, and as I started rolling with people, excuse me, as I started rolling with people, even people a lot higher belts, they do that all the time. It's just something that happens a lot, even with really competent grapplers, is they'll throw that arm up there and grab a hold of you, and if you're ready to snap on it and isolate that arm, that's a great way to make entries into arm bars and such. All right, anyway, let's go back to regular speed. Now that we've looked at that. What's going on? There we go. He Uchimata's him over. So see, he's throwing the underhook there, but he has leg control. There's no danger there. Building up, grabs his on head. It's all good wrestling stuff here. Got him. Let's see how he does it. Well, that's interesting. He started from a different position. So I guess the positional sparring they're doing is just the bottom guy has to be in turtle, and the top guy can connect him any way he wants. Interesting. Oh, I don't remember what I was going to say. Moving on. Oh, okay, yeah, I remember what I was going to say. So, I have a concept or a way I'm looking at escapes right now from the bottom, or even sweeps from the bottom, that just what you do in general from the bottom combatively is you either build head height, build hip height, or both. And then there's one more thing that I haven't quite dialed in, but it basically has to do with rolling or inverting. I think it's broken up two ways. I think there's what I call going perpendicular and then just rolling through. What we see here is kind of an example of the rolling. When he starts off, he's in a really tight tunnel, and the way Gordon Ryan is pressuring, he can't really build hip height and his head, there's a lot of weight coming forward as well, so he can't really build. He probably could have built head height, but he was concerned about the chokes, so he chose to go with the roll. And roll through. And it is, he actually did what I tried to do, what I was talking about of going perpendicular. When you see him, I should slow this down. Wow. Alright. Ah. He doesn't just roll. It's not just a forward roll to get Gordon Ryan to come forward. It's, you're trying to go perpendicular. So what I mean by that is, right here, that push that he's making with the arm is to push him out to the side so that his hips can now run perpendicular to Gordon Ryan, to where he has all of that loaded power and energy in his hips to drive a person off of him and to get him out of there. Or even better would be to completely push him that way, to where they go not just perpendicular but past it to like a north-south kind of position where he can completely address Gordon Ryan's legs and isolate his legs. So that would be kind of the going perpendicular rolling concept. I haven't quite dialed it in yet, but it's basically one of the avenues of escape when you can't build head height or hip height or both. So Gordon's focus, obviously, from a control aspect, is breaking them down, keep preventing him from doing those things. You can see here now he's starting to build hip height. He got dropped to a hip, Gordon Ryan dropped him to a hip, and now he's building hip height again to become athletic again. That's part of the reason you have to build hip height in order to escape. So you can see him doing that there. Gordon's trying to throw a hook in, which is another way of breaking down that hip height. Now he's riding and crushing his hips down, another way of breaking the hip height. So at this point, with this much dominance and control over your hips and your hip height, what you want to focus on now is head height. Because there's so much pressure and loading on your hips, you build head height now. Imagine him building height into like a wrestler switch or something. Those are the paths of escape. Head height, hip height, or both, and then again there's the roll. I think what it looks like he might try to do is to re-roll through. So he might try to roll again. Or they're going perpendicular again. That pressure is really balanced though. It's not just covering the hips, but it's loading up on his top too. His hips are starting to get free. Let's see if he builds hip height. Hip height again. He's keeping a wedge there to keep him from doing that. Does it anyway. Builds hip height. He's got the hook coming in. That's going to kill the hip height and drive him back down. All right, so we're talking about head height, hip height, or rolling. So this is, honestly, he's putting him in a bad way. He's got diagonal control, including a crossface where he's got big control of his head and arm. You know, so he's controlling a lot of his spine with his head and arm grip. He's in a bad way. I might speed this back up. I don't think he's going to escape out of this. It'd be cool to keep talking about that head height, hip height. I'm going perpendicular though. So from a control aspect, diagonal control is going to be from the top. Is going to be your big advantage. We see him using that here by he's got a lock on this leg with a hook. Now he's got a lock on the bottom leg with a hook, and he's got this opposite side of his body covered really well. It's beautiful control. Even if the choke wasn't there, that control was beautiful because it was diagonal control. So there's a perfect example. Head height or hip height. He's loaded forward. He's got a lot of weight on his shoulder and his head. So Gordon Ryan just starts to get his head up a little bit, and then his hips come right up. So he used the post of his hands to get a little bit of height with his head, and then his hips just shot right up because of the opening. Bring him back down, roll him over. He does like a beautiful like wrestling pin, cradles him into a pin. Gordon's probably going to come up and into that same single with the underhook. Maybe not at this point. It's kind of past it. Yeah, but he might do the exact same transitions you saw before. Off balance them and then come up into a wrestling single leg. Or you might isolate that arm. Alright. So combatively, particularly law enforcement and detention, I love this position. It's a really good position. You don't have to dedicate two of your arms to controlling this top arm. An underhook, a reverse underhook, I guess you could call it, will do plenty. And then you have control of the head. And then you can even control with the other available arm, you can begin to control the legs as well. And really begin to get a dominant diagonal control from this more south kind of Kimura position. So I really like this position. We'll see how he uses it. There's not a lot. What I notice in jiu-jitsu is there's not a lot of value to once you have this arm isolated in a Kimura. They don't really prioritize staying on top. They'll drop into like the T positions and stuff. But we'll see how he uses it. Yeah, he's just focused on isolating the arm. He's using that falling back motion to pull that arm and isolate it. That combatively doesn't exist or shouldn't exist. So we can talk about that a little bit. This falling back to pull the arm is worth it because if I extend the arm and put pressure on it, he'll tap and then I'll win. That's the only reason that's worth it. It's the only reason it's worth falling back to pull on that arm for the armbar is because the rules make it worth it. In a combative stand, or from a combative position, if you did it all right, you fell back, you pulled on the arm, and then you broke his arm, you still got an aggressor, and now you're on your back. Okay, the aggressor has a broken arm, but that doesn't shut anybody off, right? So this falling back onto my back to pull on an arm, we don't want that. We don't do that combatively. We stay on top, and then what happens is if you take that approach, you take that combative approach where you don't fall back and try to pull on an arm, then you start learning ways to break the arm still while remaining on top. So yeah, anyway, definitely want to point that out. This ends up one of two ways. He gets the arm extended and he breaks combatively. This ends up one of two ways. He gets the arm extended, he breaks it, he's still got an aggressor now that can pull that broken arm out and he's on his back. Or he doesn't break it and this guy escapes and ends up on top of him and he's in a way worse situation than when he started. So let's see. Exactly. There's only two ways it ends up. You either win or you end up like this. So that's the point. That's a great example of why falling back on an armbar doesn't exist combatively. It's not worth the risk, especially like MMA maybe you take that risk, but combatively in the real world as a suspect, no go. We don't fall back on arm bars. Again, let's think about this through the hip height, head height, or rolling and going perpendicular context. Let's see what happens. Head height. He went head height. He got wrapped up and crucified, but he tried. So, we'll look at it. I think he bumps him a little bit, gets his weight forward, and then he builds head height. And, you know, you almost can't even see it. It's so fast, but how quickly Gordon Ryan locked up his underside arm is the only reason he didn't escape. Like, it was nasty quick. So, I actually want to see that, because that's some skill right there. Forward a little bit. I guess he probably thinks of this as a sit out. Interesting that he sat out that way. Yeah, that's another thing that would have gave him an advantage, is to sit out the other direction that Gordon Ryan wasn't on. He actually set out to the side that Gordon Ryan was already falling to. So that's what made it it kind of stayed parallel to each other when he did the sit out, whereas in a sit out you want to end up perpendicular. So he's already kind of behind the game. And just watch how fast he locks this up. Right now, the near side, my boy's left arm is what will prevent the rotation back into Gordon Ryan in order to escape and take top position. So let's see how quick he deals with that arm. Boom. Snatched it. He did the right move though. That roll was the right move. See if he could pop his head out. No, he's still got such good tight control, he couldn't pop his head out. But look, here we go back to building hip height now. That's what's going to be his avenue of escape. Because he's building hip height, Gordon Ryan's more likely to fall and lose his connections on the top part of his body. But the Kimura is a really tight one. So they end up right back. He just uses the enormous leverage of the Kimura grip to turn right back. But he's going to come right back. Try the same thing. He'll probably go right back over. Nice. He might actually get up. Like, his hips are high enough where he might actually get out of this. Yeah, look at it, beautiful. Great escape. Got his hips high enough where he was able to be athletic enough and generate enough power to pull out of that. And that lock was legit too. That Kimura lock was perfect. Hip height, head height, or rolling and turning from, I don't know what to call it yet. Going perpendicular. It's going to take too long like this. Let's go through. Alright, he's trying to front headlock route again. stuff. He's going with the Kimura position again. How did he fail last time at the Kimura position? He went crucifix, didn't he? Ah, God, I don't even remember. Oh, he fell back on the armbar. He's making the same mistake again. I mean, it's not a mistake in this context. It's totally worth it in this context, but like, it will have the same error. Now that would be the difference, the adjustment he could make. And this is just from a straight jiu-jitsu context. The adjustment he could make is the power and athleticism that Gordon Ryan's going to generate to get out of this and get on top will come from his legs. So if he can reach down and control the leg while addressing these arms, that's going to be the real way to win this battle, especially being the smaller guy. He needs to address the leg. Like right here, this is good, but he's not the one addressing the leg. This is good for him, but he's not the one addressing the leg. Gordon Ryan's actually the one holding his own leg right now. Yeah, just his leg turning, him running his legs around generates too much power and torque for you to be able to control that wrist and keep that arm where you want it.